The Great Meeting Hall on Nexus Prime was the largest building ever built in the galaxy. Its crystal walls stretched up so high that clouds formed near the ceiling. Today it held the most important meeting in galactic history. Ambassador Elena Vasquez sat at a long white table that seemed to glow with its own light. She wore a simple blue uniform with Earth symbol on her shoulder. Her dark hair was pulled back in a neat bun, and her brown eyes stayed calm even though she knew what was coming. Across from her sat 7 different alien species. Each one looked more dangerous than the last. War Prime Thax of the Corvan Empire was the size of a small building. His thick armor was black metal covered in scars from 1,000 battles. 4 arms ended in claws that could tear through steel. When he breathed, steam came out of holes in his helmet. Next to him sat 3 members of the Zeph Collective. They looked like gray insects standing on 2 legs. Their large black eyes never blinked, and they moved in perfect sync with each other. When one turned its head, the other 2 did the same thing at the exact same time. The Ethereal Council sent Sage Luminex, who floated above his chair in a bubble of purple light. His body was thin and see-through like he was made of glass. Strange symbols floated around his head, changing colors as he thought. The other species filled the remaining seats. Each one represented billions of beings across the galaxy. Each one had agreed that humanity was a problem that needed to be solved. Admiral Chen sat to Elena's right. He was an older man with gray hair and steady hands. His uniform had more medals than could be counted, each one representing a battle where humans had refused to give up. General Rodriguez sat to her left. She was younger, but her eyes were hard as stone. During the 3-year war, she had led human ground forces against impossible odds. Her soldiers called her the Wall because nothing could break through her defenses. For 3 hours, the aliens had been talking. Each species listed their demands. Each demand was worse than the last. "Humanity will give up all colonies beyond the Sol system," said Thax. His voice sounded like rocks grinding together. "Your people will return to Earth and stay there." One of the Zeph spoke next. Its voice was flat and empty of feeling. "Human military forces will be limited to 1,000 ships. These ships will have no weapons larger than defensive systems." Sage Luminex's words appeared directly in everyone's mind. Humans will pay for the damage caused by their illegal expansion. The cost will be 50% of Earth's production for the next century. The list went on and on. Humans could not travel freely. Human technology would be shared with the galaxy. But alien technology would stay secret. Human leaders would report to the Galactic Council once per month. Elena listened to every word. She did not speak. She did not move. Her face showed nothing. Admiral Chen's hand rested on the table near his water glass. His fingers drummed once, twice, 3 times. It was a signal. The same signal human military had used for centuries when they were about to do something the enemy would not expect. General Rodriguez shifted in her chair. To anyone watching, it looked like she was just getting comfortable. But Elena knew better. Rodriguez was getting ready to move fast if needed. The aliens finished reading their terms. The hall became quiet except for the sound of Thax's breathing and the soft hum of alien technology. Thax leaned forward. His massive frame made the table creak. "These terms are final, humans. Your species has shown that it cannot be trusted to expand peacefully. You are too violent, too unpredictable. Accept our protection or we will destroy every human world." One of the Zeph nodded its insect head. "Mathematical analysis shows that resistance is pointless. Humanity has lost 60% of its fleet. Your production capacity is down 40%. Surrender is the only logical choice." Sage Luminex sent thoughts that felt cold and distant. "We offer mercy where none is deserved. Your species started this war by refusing to follow galactic law. Accept these terms and your people will live." Elena closed her datapad with a soft click. The sound seemed very loud in the quiet hall. She stood up slowly. Her chair did not make a sound as it slid back. "We came here hoping to talk with equals," she said. Her voice was calm, but something in it made the universal translators spark and hiss. "We thought we could find peace through honest discussion." She looked at each alien in turn. "Instead, you offer us slavery with pretty words wrapped around it." The aliens started to make noise. Thax's breathing got louder. The Zeph clicked their mandibles together. Sage Luminex's symbol spun faster around his head. Elena picked up her datapad and held it against her chest. "Humanity rejects your terms." The hall exploded with sound. Thax roared something in his own language that the translators refused to process. The Zeph made a high-pitched whining noise that hurt human ears. Sage Luminex's thoughts hammered against everyone's mind like angry fists. Admiral Chen and General Rodriguez stood up at the same time. Their movements were smooth and practiced like they had done this 1,000 times before. "Wait!" Thax slammed all 4 fists on the table. The crystal surface cracked but did not break. "You cannot simply leave." No species has ever walked away from council negotiations. Elena was already walking toward the door. Her steps echoed in the huge hall. "There is a first time for everything." One of the Zeph spoke rapidly. Calculation error detected. Human behavior does not match predicted patterns. Recommend immediate conference halt for strategy revision. Sage Luminex sent desperate thoughts toward the humans. "Stop, you do not understand the consequences of this action. The galaxy will not allow your defiance." Admiral Chen paused at the door. He turned back with a smile that was colder than space. "You started this war because you thought we would break like every other species you have civilized. You were wrong then." He looked at each alien again. "You are wrong now." General Rodriguez spoke for the first time that day. Her voice was quiet, but everyone heard her clearly. "You want to know what makes humans different? We would rather die free than live as slaves." The 3 humans walked out together. The massive doors closed behind them with a sound like thunder. The aliens sat in shocked silence. In 3,000 years of galactic history, no species had ever simply walked away from council terms. Client species begged for mercy, enemy species fought until they were destroyed. But walking away? It had never happened. Thax was the first to speak. "What do we do now?" The Zeph looked at each other with their black eyes. For the first time in their species' history, they were not sure what to think. Sage Luminex's thoughts were confused and frightened. "I do not know. This was not supposed to happen." In the hallway outside, Elena walked between Chen and Rodriguez. None of them spoke until they reached their ship. "Think they will try to stop us?" Rodriguez asked. Chen shook his head. "They are too shocked right now. They expected us to beg or to fight. They never expected us to just say no and leave." Elena looked back at the crystal building one last time. They have no idea what they have just started. High above them, human ships were already moving. The real war was about to begin. 3 days after the humans walked away, emergency meetings were happening all across the galaxy. In war rooms and council chambers, alien leaders tried to understand what had just happened. On the Corvin homeworld, War Prime Thax stood before a wall of glowing screens. Each screen showed the position of human ships throughout the galaxy. What he saw made no sense. "They are pulling back," said Sub-Commander Krell, a smaller Corvin with only 2 arms. "Human fleets are leaving the border systems and moving toward their core worlds." Thax studied the moving dots of light. "This makes no tactical sense. When a species faces extinction, they scatter their forces. They try to save what they can and hide in the dark spaces between stars. But the humans are doing the opposite," Krell said. "They are bringing their ships together. They are concentrating their forces." A third Corvin officer approached. His name was Captain Vex, and he specialized in studying enemy behavior. "I have been reading human history," he said. "There is something called spite in their psychological profiles." "Explain," Thax ordered. "When humans are cornered, they do not become weaker. They become more dangerous. In their own wars, humans have chosen to destroy themselves rather than surrender to enemies they hated." Thax's 4 eyes narrowed. "You think they plan to fight to total extinction?" "Worse," Captain Vex said quietly. "I think they plan to take us with them." On the Zeph homeworld, 10 billion connected minds buzzed with confused data. The collective had studied human surrender patterns for months before the peace talks. Humans always gave up eventually. In every war in their history, when facing complete defeat, they negotiated. Prime Node 07 processed the same battle data over and over. "Error and base assumptions," it reported to the other nodes. Previous human conflicts involved humans fighting humans. Shared species parameters allowed for eventual compromise. "Current conflict parameters?" asked Prime Node 03. "Humans versus non-humans. Previous behavioral models show irrelevant data. We are in unknown territory." The collective had never been wrong about species behavior before. They analyzed everything: brain patterns, social structures, historical data. They could predict how any species would react to any situation, but humans were different somehow. They did not follow the patterns. Prime Node 07 accessed the memory files from the peace talks. It replayed Elena Vasquez's final words over and over. Humanity rejects your terms. There had been something else in her voice, something the translators had not captured. It was not fear or anger or desperation. It was something the collective had no word for. Query: what is the human concept called principle? 07 asked. The answer came back from a million different data sources at once. Principle: a fundamental truth or rule that guides behavior regardless of consequences. For the first time in the collective's history, 10 billion minds felt something like fear. In the crystal cities of the ethereal council, ancient beings that had lived for thousands of years gathered in emergency session. Sage Luminex shared his memory of the peace talks with the other council members. There was something in the human ambassador's mind, he said, something she did not speak aloud. I caught only a fragment before her mental shield snapped shut. Show us, said Sage Vorthak, the oldest of their kind. Luminex projected the memory into the shared consciousness of the council. They saw Elena's face as she stood to leave. They felt the edge of her thoughts in those final moments. The concept hit them like a physical blow. Mutually assured destruction, Vorthak whispered. They are not planning to surrender or flee. What are they planning? Asked Sage Kethril. To ensure that if humanity dies, we die with them. The ethereals had touched the minds of 1,000 species over the millennia. They knew the thoughts of conquerors and victims, of the brave and the cowardly, but this was something new. They would truly choose extinction over submission? Kethril asked. Not just extinction, Luminex replied. Extinction with honor. To them there are fates worse than death. The council fell silent. In all their long lives, they had never encountered a species that valued abstract concepts more than survival. Meanwhile, in the Sol system, human leaders gathered in a deep bunker beneath the mountains of North America. The room was simple compared to the crystal halls of Nexus Prime. Just metal walls, bright lights, and a big table covered with data screens. Admiral Chen stood at the head of the table. Around him sat generals, scientists, and political leaders from every nation on Earth. The aliens think we are bluffing, Chen said. They expect us to come crawling back within the week, begging for those same terms we rejected. General Rodriguez nodded. Our intelligence suggests they have never seen a species simply walk away before. They do not know how to process it. Elena Vasquez activated a holographic display showing the galaxy. Red zones marked alien-controlled space. Blue zones showed human territory. The blue zones were much smaller. They offered us slavery disguised as protection, she said. They called it mercy, but we know better. Dr. Sarah Chen, Admiral Chen's younger sister and Earth's leading physicist, stood up. She was smaller than the military officers, but when she spoke, everyone listened. I have been analyzing the alien technology we captured during the war, she said. They have some advantages over us, but they also have weaknesses. What kind of weaknesses? Asked President Morrison. They think in predictable patterns. Their technology is advanced, but it follows rules they have used for thousands of years. They cannot imagine that rules can be broken. Sarah activated another display. This one showed blueprints and equations that hurt to look at directly. For the past year, we have been developing something new, something that does not follow their rules. The Prometheus Protocol, Admiral Chen said. Yes. If we implement it, the aliens will discover that walking away from their peace talks was not surrender. It was a declaration of war unlike anything they have ever seen. President Morrison looked around the table. Are we all in agreement? Every person in the room nodded. Then we proceed with Prometheus Protocol, Morrison said. God help us all. Back on Nexus Prime, the alien leaders were still arguing about what to do. Some wanted to attack Earth immediately. Others suggested waiting to see if the humans changed their minds. Perhaps we were too harsh, suggested one of the smaller species representatives. Maybe we should offer better terms. Thax laughed, a sound like boulders falling down a mountain. Better terms? They rejected perfectly reasonable surrender conditions. There is nothing to negotiate. Then what do you suggest? Asked a Zeph representative. We wait, Thax said. Humans are emotional creatures. When they realize their position is hopeless, they will return. All species do eventually. Sage Luminex was not so sure. He kept thinking about that moment when Elena's mental shields had slipped. The concept he had glimpsed there was not desperation or fear, it was anticipation, like someone who had been waiting a very long time for the right moment to do something terrible. 3 days after the failed peace talks, As alien leaders debated and argued, human ships finished their mysterious withdrawal to the core worlds. They sat in space around Earth and Mars and the other colonies, waiting. What they were waiting for, none of the aliens could guess. They would find out soon enough. 6 weeks after humanity walked away from the peace talks, the galaxy learned what humans meant by rejection. The first sign came at Raxthor, the strongest Corvan military base in the galaxy. The system had never fallen in 800 years of war. Massive space stations floated between 3 planets, each one armed with enough weapons to destroy a moon. War Commander Vex stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching the tactical display. A small human fleet was approaching. "Just 30 ships against his 300, are they insane?" asked his second officer. "Do they think so few ships can challenge Raxthor?" Vex studied the human formation. "Maybe they plan to ram our stations. Humans are known for desperate suicide attacks when they face defeat." The human ships came closer. Vex could see them clearly now on his screens. They looked different somehow, sleeker, like they had been rebuilt with new technology. "All weapons target the human fleet," Vex ordered. "Prepare to destroy them before they can ram our stations." "Yes, War Commander," his weapons officer replied. "Targeting, wait, where did they go?" Vex looked at the display. The human ships had simply vanished. Not destroyed, not retreating. Just gone as if they had never existed. "Sensor malfunction?" he asked. "No, sir. All sensors are working perfectly. The human ships just disappeared." That was when the explosion started. The first blast came from inside Station 7. The massive structure shuddered and began to break apart from within. Then Station 3 exploded. Then the flagship of the Second Fleet. "How is this possible?" Vex shouted. "Our shields are up. Our armor is intact." His communications officer was frantically trying to contact the other ships. "Sir, I am getting reports from across the fleet. Ships are exploding from the inside. They are saying humans are appearing inside their hulls. That is impossible. Sir, look at screen 4. Vex turned to see the security feed from his own ship's corridors. Human soldiers were walking through the hallways. But they were not walking through open doors. They were walking through solid metal walls as if the walls were not there. One of the humans looked directly at the security camera and smiled. Then he raised his weapon and fired at something off-screen. "They are inside our ship," Vex whispered. "But how did they get past our shields? Our armor? Our security systems?" The answer came when his bridge doors exploded inward. Human soldiers poured through the opening, their weapons already firing, but some of them did not come through the door. They came through the solid wall next to the door. Vex had time for one last thought before the bridge filled with the sound of human weapons. These are not the same humans we have been fighting. Similar reports flooded in from across the galaxy. 17 major alien installations came under attack at the same time. In each case, human forces appeared without warning and struck with weapons that seemed to ignore the laws of physics. On Kepler Station, a Zeph research facility, human soldiers walked through energy barriers that should have stopped them cold. They moved through the station like ghosts, striking at vital systems and disappearing before the defenders could react. The Zeph tried to coordinate their defense through their collective mind. But something was wrong. The humans had devices that blocked psychic connections. For the first time in their species' history, individual Zeph found themselves alone in their own heads. "Help us," one Zeph scientist cried into his communicator. "We cannot hear the collective." "We are alone!" The human soldier who appeared next to him looked almost sad. "Now you know how the rest of us feel," the human said. Just before everything went dark, at the Ethereal Council's most sacred temple on Thessia Prime, ancient psychic barriers that had protected the site for thousands of years suddenly filled with human thoughts. Not just any thoughts. Angry thoughts. Violent thoughts. Chaotic thoughts that shattered telepathic defenses like glass hitting stone. Sage Luminex tried to raise a mental shield, but the human thoughts poured through his mind like acid. Individual consciousness. Personal identity. The terrible, beautiful isolation of thinking for yourself. Make it stop. He screamed, but his voice was lost in the mental storm of human individuality. The last thing he saw before his consciousness shattered was a human soldier stepping through the temple's energy fields. The soldier's mind blazed with a single thought repeated over and over. "You wanted to know what makes us different. This is what makes us different." On Earth, deep beneath the Rocky Mountains, Dr. Sarah Chen monitored the deployment of technologies that humanity had spent decades developing in secret. Her laboratory looked like something from a science fiction movie. Strange machines hummed with power that made the air itself glow. Phase shift drives are working perfectly, she reported to Admiral Chen over a secure channel. Our ships can now move through folded spacetime. Enemy shields and armor cannot stop attacks that come from a different dimension. What about the PSI null fields? Admiral Chen asked. Deployed successfully on all ground forces. The Zeph cannot touch our soldiers' minds, and the ethereal telepathic attacks just slide off our mental barriers. General Rodriguez's voice joined the conversation. The quantum entanglement weapons are performing beyond expectations. We can now strike targets anywhere in the galaxy instantly, without travel time. Admiral Chen reviewed the tactical reports flowing in from 17 different battlefields. Every target was being neutralized ahead of schedule. The aliens wanted to see what happens when you corner humanity, he said grimly. Now they know. Sarah looked at the massive machines around her. These technologies should not work. According to everything we knew about physics 6 months ago, they are impossible. But they do work, Admiral Chen pointed out. Yes, because we stopped thinking about what was impossible and started thinking about what we needed to survive. The reports kept coming in. Corvin fleets destroyed from within. Zeph research stations captured without a shot being fired by the defenders. Ethereal strongholds invaded by thoughts they could not block. In just 6 hours, humanity had demonstrated that the 3-year war had not weakened them. It had changed them into something entirely new. President Morrison joined the conversation from the command center in Washington. How long until the first phase is complete? 12 hours, Sarah replied. All primary alien military assets will be neutralized by then. And their response? Admiral Chen's voice was cold as deep space. They are trying to surrender. We are not accepting their surrender. Why not? Because this is not about conquest, General Rodriguez said. This is about making sure this never happens again. They offered us a choice between slavery and extinction. We are showing them there was a third option they never considered, which is revolution. Across the galaxy, alien emergency broadcasts filled every communications channel. Desperate pleas for ceasefire, offers of complete surrender, promises to leave human space forever. But human forces did not slow down. They moved through alien defenses like they were not there. They struck with precision that bordered on the supernatural. They fought like they had been preparing for this exact war their entire lives, because they had been. The crashed alien probe that landed on Earth 50 years ago. The failed diplomatic contacts that gave humanity access to alien technology. The 3 years of losing the war. While human scientists studied every piece of alien equipment they could capture, it had all been preparation for this moment, the moment when humanity stopped trying to fit into someone else's galaxy and started reshaping the galaxy to fit them. The aliens had wanted to know what made humans different from every other species they had conquered. Now they were learning. 3 months after humanity's impossible weapons first appeared, the galaxy's most powerful leaders sat in emergency session once again. But this time they were not confident conquerors. They were terrified survivors. The Great Hall on Nexus Prime looked very different now. Scorch marks covered the crystal walls. Half the lights were broken. Many of the chairs sat empty because their occupants were dead. War Prime Thax had lost 2 of his forearms to a human weapon that cut through Corvin battle armor like it was paper. His remaining arm shook as he tried to access his tactical displays. 15 core systems, he said, his voice no longer proud and strong. They have taken 15 of our most protected worlds in 3 months. Worlds that should have been impossible to reach. The Zeph collective was no longer truly collective. Human psi-null technology had severed connections between millions of individual minds. 3 separate Zeph sat at the table instead of the unified consciousness that once spoke for billions. Our mathematical models show complete species extinction in 1.7 standard years, one of them said. Its voice sounded lost and alone. The humans are not just winning. They are improving their technology faster than we can adapt to it. Sage Luminex of the Ethereal Council was a shadow of his former self, his elegant floating form now huddled in a chair, surrounded by psi-dampening fields that kept his shattered mind protected from human mental attacks. I have touched their thoughts, he whispered. There is no hatred there, no anger, No satisfaction in victory, only cold determination. They do not want to conquer us. They want to end us completely. The smaller species representatives were even worse off. The Meridian technocracy had lost their entire research fleet to human cyber warfare that turned their own computers against them. The Void Runners had seen their proud stealth ships detected and destroyed by human sensors that seemed to see through every hiding spot. How is this possible? Demanded what remained of the Aquatic Confederation. 6 months ago, they were a minor species with primitive technology. Now they fight like they have been planning this war for centuries. Admiral Sektar of the Void Runners, one of the few military minds still functioning, pulled up a holographic map of the galaxy. Red markers showed human attacks over the past 3 months. Look at the pattern, he said. They are not trying to hold territory. They are not interested in our resources or our worlds. They are targeting our military capabilities, our research stations, our industrial centers. The pattern was clear once you saw it. Every human strike had eliminated some alien advantage. Weapon research facilities, ship construction yards, training academies, command centers. They are systematically destroying our ability to threaten them. Sektar continued. This is not conquest. This is disarmament. Thax tried to stand, but his injured body could not support his weight. We must negotiate. Send messages to their leaders. Offer them anything they want. We have tried, said one of the Zeph. Every surrender offer is ignored. Every ceasefire proposal goes unanswered. They will not speak to us. Then what do they want? Sage Luminex raised his head slowly. I know what they want. I saw it in their ambassador's mind during the first peace talks. They want to ensure this never happens again. What does that mean? It means they plan to remove our ability to threaten any species ever again. The terrible silence that followed was broken by alarms. The chamber's defense systems detected incoming ships, human ships. But these were not the same vessels that had struggled against alien technology 3 months ago. These ships moved through space like they owned it. They ignored energy barriers. They passed through solid matter. They appeared and disappeared at will. On the flagship Indomitable, Admiral Chen reviewed the latest reports from across the galaxy. His officers worked with quiet efficiency around him. No celebration, no victory speeches, just professional soldiers doing a job. Corvin military production is down 80%, reported Commander Williams. Their remaining shipyards are too damaged to build anything larger than a shuttle. Zeph research networks? Completely fragmented. Without their collective consciousness, they cannot coordinate scientific projects. Individual Zeph minds are not capable of the complex thinking their species once achieved. Ethereal temples? All major sites neutralized. Their psychic abilities are blocked by our psi-null fields. They can no longer influence other species through mental manipulation. Admiral Chen nodded. What about civilian populations? Untouched as ordered. We are targeting only military and research facilities. Civilian casualties are being kept to absolute minimum. This was important. Humanity was not interested in genocide. They were interested in making sure the threat was permanently removed. General Rodriguez's voice came over the communication system. Admiral, we have secured the alien archives on Sanctuary Station. The historical records are disturbing. How so? The Galactic Council has done this before. 17 times in the past 1,000 years. They find an emerging species, offer them protection, and when the species refuses, they wage war until the species accepts client status or is destroyed. Admiral Chen felt his jaw tighten. Do any of those 17 species still exist? None. Some were wiped out completely. Others were absorbed into client species status and gradually died out through genetic mixing and cultural suppression. The bridge fell silent. The aliens had not been offering humanity a chance to survive. They had been offering humanity a slow, comfortable extinction. So walking away from those peace talks was not about pride, Admiral Chen said finally. No, sir. It was about species survival. On Earth, President Morrison addressed the Global Defense Council. The room was filled with tired faces. 3 months of impossible war had taken its toll on everyone. The alien leadership is trying to surrender, Morrison reported. They are offering us everything we originally asked for and more. Are we accepting? Asked the Secretary of Defense. No, because their offers are based on the assumption that we want to join their galactic community. We do not, Dr. Sarah Chen stood up. Her hair was now completely white from months of working with technologies that pushed the limits of human understanding. The aliens built their civilization on a simple principle, she said. Stronger species dominate weaker ones. They cannot imagine any other way of organizing a galaxy. What are you suggesting? Morrison asked. That we show them a different way, not by joining their system, but by replacing it entirely. The room erupted in surprised voices. This was not what anyone had expected. Replace the Galactic Council? Asked the Secretary of State. With what? Sarah activated a holographic display showing the galaxy, but instead of the old maps with different colors for different empires, this one showed something new. With a system where strength does not determine worth, where smaller species are protected, not dominated, where no single species can threaten all the others. You are talking about revolutionizing the entire galaxy, Morrison said. Yes, because anything less will eventually lead us back to this same situation. The strong will try to dominate the weak, and someday, there might be a species stronger than humanity. Admiral Chen's voice joined the conversation from space. The aliens keep asking what we want from them. They cannot understand that what we want is for them to never be able to do this to anyone else again. General Rodriguez added her thoughts. Every weapons facility we destroy, every military base we capture, every research station we neutralize makes the galaxy a little safer for everyone. President Morrison looked around the room. So we continue the war? We continue the revolution, Sarah corrected. This stopped being about humanity the moment we learned about those 17 extinct species. Now it is about making sure there are no more extinct species. Back on Nexus Prime, the remaining alien leaders watched human ships take positions around their world. The humans did not demand surrender. They did not issue ultimatums. They simply waited. What are they waiting for? Whispered one of the smaller species. Admiral Sektar understood. He had studied human tactics for months now. They are waiting for us to realize that we have no choice. No choice but to surrender? No choice but to change. The human revolution was not just about defeating the Galactic Council. It was about replacing everything the Council represented with something entirely new. Something the galaxy had never seen before. Something that might actually work. 1 year after humanity walked away from the Armistice talks, the war ended. Not with negotiation, but with complete alien surrender. The final meeting took place in the same crystal hall where the peace talks had failed. But everything was different now. Human Marines stood where alien guards once waited. Human ships filled the sky outside where alien fleets used to patrol. Admiral Chen entered through the same doors where Ambassador Vasquez had made her exit 12 months ago. But now he came backed by the most advanced military force the galaxy had ever seen. General Rodriguez walked beside him, her soldiers following in perfect formation. Dr. Sarah Chen accompanied them, her presence a reminder of the scientific revolution that had made human victory possible. Her white hair and tired eyes showed the cost of developing weapons that bent the laws of physics. The alien survivors looked nothing like the proud conquerors who had once sat at this table. War Prime Thakex was missing most of his limbs, his mighty armor reduced to basic life support equipment. The few remaining Zeph sat separately, still struggling with individual consciousness after being cut off from their collective mind, Sage. Luminex was wrapped in psi-dampening fields that protected his broken telepathic abilities but left him feeling naked and alone. The other species representatives were equally diminished, shadows of their former power. Ambassador Vasquez, now holding the title of Terran High Commissioner, took the same seat she had occupied 1 year ago. The symbolism was not lost on anyone. 1 year ago you offered us terms, she began. Her voice carried easily through the silent chamber. Surrender of our colonies, limitations on our military, reparations for our illegal expansion, and eternal submission to your council. She activated a holographic display showing the current state of the galaxy. What it showed made the aliens flinch. Red zones marked former alien strongholds now under human control. Empty zones showed systems that had been abandoned after their military value was destroyed. Yellow zones indicated areas where human peacekeeping forces maintained order. We declined your offer, Vasquez continued. Today we present our terms to you. The aliens leaned forward desperately. After months of systematic defeat, any chance for survival was better than none. First, all alien military forces are permanently disbanded. Earth will maintain peacekeeping fleets in your systems to ensure compliance with galactic law. War Prime Thax tried to speak, but his voice came out as a weak whisper. What galactic law? The law we are writing, General Rodriguez answered. The law that says no species may threaten another with extinction. The law that says strength does not give you the right to dominate others. Vasquez continued. Second, your governments will be restructured under human oversight. No more councils that make decisions for billions without asking them. No more collective minds that absorb individual thoughts. No more sage kings who rule through psychic manipulation. One of the Zeph managed to find its voice. What will replace our systems? Democracy, Admiral Chen said simply. Every individual gets a voice. Every opinion matters. Every person has rights that cannot be taken away. But that is chaos, protested one of the smaller species. How can billions of separate minds ever agree on anything? Dr. Sarah Chen smiled sadly, very slowly and with great difficulty, but the results are worth it. Vasquez activated another display. Third, reparations. You will provide complete technological databases, historical records, and resource access to compensate for your attempted genocide of humanity. The aliens looked confused. Genocide? Asked Sage Luminex. We offered you client species status. That is not genocide. We found your historical records, General Rodriguez said coldly. 17 species over the past 1,000 years. All offered the same choice you gave us. None of them exist anymore. The chamber filled with shocked silence. The aliens had never thought of their expansion as genocide. To them, it was just the natural order of things. Which brings us to our fourth requirement, Vasquez said. The 17 species you erased will be restored. Impossible, whispered Thax. They are gone, dead for centuries. We have their genetic records from your own archives, Dr. Sarah Chen said. We have their cultural databases from the museums you built to commemorate your victories. We have everything we need to bring them back. She looked at each alien representative in turn, and you will provide the resources to do it. All of it. Worlds, technology, raw materials, everything they need to rebuild their civilizations. And when they are restored, asked one of the Zeph. They will have full voting rights in the new galactic government, Admiral Chen said. Along with every other species that chooses to join, the aliens exchanged desperate glances. These terms were harsh, but they were being offered survival. After months of human military superiority, many had expected complete extermination. What if we refuse? Asked a representative from one of the smaller species. The humans looked at each other. It was General Rodriguez who answered. Then you refuse. We will not force you to accept these terms. You will not? No. But we will also not allow you to threaten other species ever again. If you choose not to join the new galactic order, you will be confined to your home systems. No expansion, no military buildup, no contact with other species. Forever, until you change your minds. Sage Luminex struggled to process this through his damaged telepathic abilities. You would let us live but isolated? Every species has the right to exist, Ambassador Vasquez said. But no species has the right to threaten others. War Prime Thax looked at his tactical displays one final time. Every screen showed the same thing, human ships in positions of complete control. Human technology that made Corvan weapons look like stone tools. Human soldiers who could walk through walls and strike from impossible distances. We accept your terms, he said finally. One by one, the other species agreed. They had no choice, but something unexpected happened in the months that followed. The new galactic government that humanity established actually worked. Democracy was messy and slow, just as the aliens had predicted. But it was also fair. Species that had been oppressed for centuries finally had a voice. Planets that had been strip-mined for resources were rebuilt. Technologies that had been hoarded by the powerful were shared with everyone. 10 years later, Ambassador Vasquez stood in the observation deck of the rebuilt Nexus Prime, now called New Geneva. Below her, the Galactic Assembly Hall buzzed with activity. A young Corvan engineer debated infrastructure policy with a restored member of the extinct Takari species. A group of individual Zeph worked together on a project with former Ethereal Council members and 3 species that had been extinct for so long that the current generation had never heard of them. Dr. Sarah Chen, now much older but with eyes that sparkled with curiosity instead of exhaustion, joined her old friend at the viewing platform. Do you ever regret it? Sarah asked. Walking away that day? We could have accepted their terms, found a way to survive as a client species. Vasquez shook her head, watching a mixed group of young beings from a dozen different worlds collaborating on what looked like a new form of art. "Look at them," she said quietly. "A galaxy where strength does not determine worth, where diversity is celebrated instead of feared, where no species has to choose between slavery and extinction." She turned to Sarah with a smile. "This is what we fought for. Not human supremacy, not revenge, just the right for everyone to exist without fear." Sarah laughed. "You know what I love most about it?" "What?" "They keep asking us how we knew it would work, how we planned all of this, and the truth is we had no idea. We just knew that their system was wrong and we had to try something different." In the assembly below, the session continued. Beings who had once been natural enemies now worked together to solve problems their ancestors had created through war and oppression. It was not perfect. Democracy never was. There were arguments and disagreements and political fights that lasted for months. But there was also something the galaxy had never known before. Hope. The hope that came from knowing that every voice mattered, that every species had value, that the strong could not simply take what they wanted from the weak. It was the future that walking away from those armistice talks had made possible. Sometimes, the best response to an impossible choice was to create a third option that no one had thought of before. Sometimes, revolution was the only way to real peace. And sometimes, when the powerful offered you slavery disguised as mercy, the right answer was simple: no. The galaxy was a better place because humanity had learned to say that word, and because they had been willing to back it up with everything they had. The war was over. The real work was just beginning. But for the first time in galactic history, every species could look forward to a future where they would not have to fight just to exist. That was worth walking away for.